Good evening, ILEETA members. Welcome to another month of ILEETA Live. Here it is, the end of August. Summer's closing out. Everybody's got kids going back to school. So the house is kind of quiet or noisy with our kids yelling about homework that they don't want to do. One of the two. But we're happy to be joined by a wonderful guest, Robb Rose from Missouri. And without further ado, we're just going to jump right into things. And Robb, for those that don't know who you are, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, my name is Robert Rose. I'm currently with a sheriff's department in Southeast Missouri, actually Cape Girardeau County Sheriff's Office. I've been there it'll be 2 years in November. Prior to that, I was with another agency in Southeast Missouri. I was there 12 years. Maybe it's best if I go back, start the other way. I was born in Springfield, Illinois. Both of my parents worked. My dad worked for the post office. My mother, she's a teacher. My dad was also a veteran. I have veterans in the family, so I knew early on that service was going to be some part of my life. I didn't know where. Honestly, I grew up watching Emergency, so I thought I'd be a fireman. Yeah. Time goes on, and I went to high school, graduated in 3 years because I know I wanted to go to the service. So joined the Navy. Did my time in the Navy, got out, got into college, but it really was not sitting in class all day. Really didn't appeal to me. And one night, my cousin, who was a deputy sheriff, he said, "Hey, why don't you come out and take a ride with me one night? Just check it out." I did, and I was hooked. And that was about 98-ish, 98, 99. I got hooked, and immediately I applied to become a reserve deputy sheriff. Started as a reserve deputy sheriff, and then a full-time position came open for a court security officer. So I was doing both of those. Left that agency in 2004, 2005. I left Illinois altogether. Moved to Missouri, where I was dating a woman who actually later became my wife. And at the same time, I began testing for another agency down south in Georgia. About 2008, the month that we got married, I also got word from this department in Georgia, "Hey, you're ready to start. We're ready to hire you. You have to be here in 2 weeks." And I said, "Wait a minute, that's not going to happen." I said, "I just got married." So they waited. And about a month later, we moved to Georgia. Went to Georgia, waited for an academy class to start, had to wait. And in that time, you do other things for the department while your academy class builds up. The academy class started, went through 18 weeks of that academy, and an issue arose. It was a training issue that we tried to fix but couldn't fix. I transferred to another class. Issue still wasn't fixed. So they said, "Okay, we still want you to come back to the academy, but for right now, we're going to send you to our city's corrections department," which allowed me to get a Georgia post certification. In that time, about 2010-ish, my mother passed away. I'm in Georgia. I'm about 9 hours away from home. I said I at least want to get closer to home. So we moved back to Missouri about mid-late 2010. Started an academy in Southeast Missouri, Cape Girardeau to be exact. Graduated from that academy and got hired by the agency here in Southeast Missouri and stayed there for 12 years. I started January 2011 and left November 2022. It was bittersweet, but it was time to go. And during that time, I went through a lot. I went through a whole lot. In that time, I had 2 strokes. I was involved in a shootout. Luckily, no officers were injured. The only person who was injured was the bad guy. In 2013, with that department, I decided, and this was after the shootout, I decided that I wanted to go SWAT, or down here as this called SRT, Special Response Team. 2015, I went to the St. Charles County Basic SWAT School. It's right outside St. Louis. You earn every day there at SWAT school. And I made it. And it was the one of the proudest times in my life, making it through SWAT school, because it's so tough. It's grueling. Made it through, stayed on my team until I left the department. And then November 2022, something happened. I knew there had to be, it was change. I needed to change. I've been at that department about 12 years at this point, 11 and a half, 12 years. I wasn't happy. My wife saw it. She knew I wasn't happy. I had 2 strokes. I survived 2 strokes. And I tried to go through it as much and as hard as I could to stick it out. But eventually, I had to make the decision. It's like, okay, do I stay here and keep putting myself through the stress that I know I'm going through, or does it come to a point where I make a new decision, make a new choice, find a new path? That path was with the Cape Girardeau County Sheriff's Office. I did an interview with them. It was a great interview. It was about a 30-minute interview. It was my lieutenant, my current sergeant, and a corporal who's on the other side of the house. We did the interview, and the interview was going good. About 15 minutes in, my lieutenant, he asked me, he said, "Hey, is there anything you would want to come over here?" He said, "Rob, we all know each other because the departments are so close." He said, "Rob, I know you. I want you here. What do you want to come to this department?" And I think maybe he thought money, because usually cops, when we go to other departments, we think, okay, maybe I can get some more money by going to this department. I didn't want money. I said, all I want is to be able to go to ILEETA. So my lieutenant, who had not heard about it, he had heard about ILEETA, which is strange because we're right here in Missouri. He said, "What's ILEETA?" So I explained it to him, and I came up with the phrase that Joe likes, cop college. I said, it's cop college for a week. I said, they send us to cop college for a week. You sit there and you learn. It's a learning environment, and I get so much from it. And I've already been at least a couple conferences before I went to the sheriff's office. And I said, it's done a lot for me to help me emotionally, help me mentally. And he kind of chuckled and he said, our training budget, our sheriff wants her deputies to go to as many trainings as possible. So you going to ILEETA is not a problem. And it wasn't. And with that green light, I still waited. I waited for about 2 weeks before I actually gave him the word. I had the green light to go, and he called and basically told me, "Hey, you need to squat or get off the pot," in so many words. So we're not going to hold it forever. It was kind of heartbreaking leaving my former department, but I knew when I turned in my resignation letter It was real. And I did. It was the hardest thing. Wow, hardest thing I have ever had to do was turn in that letter. I talked to my chief. He was positive. I talked to my assistant chief. He was positive. There was a couple of people there. I'm not going to lie. They really weren't positive. And one even told me, I don't have nothing to say to you. I walked out of that man's office and I haven't looked back since. I haven't talked to him. I mean, when you move on, when you cut your ties, you almost have to cut them. You have to cut them to move forward. I still see these guys. I still talk to them. But I haven't had desire to go back. I'm happy where I'm at now. I work with a great squad. I got a good corporal, bunch of great deputies. My sheriff, she's great. Our department as a whole is great. We're going through change. We're going through growth. And I'm glad to be a part of that change. It's positive. I use the word love carefully. I kind of fell in love back with the profession, the love that I lost at one place. I found it at another house. Also in that time, I had strokes. That was another reason I had to leave. I had 2 strokes in 2020 around COVID time when outside was closed off. The first one, it was a mini stroke. It was what do you call it? I should have taken it more seriously than I did. I didn't. Had a stroke, went through it. Oh, well, I feel fine. But that's how the mini strokes are. They last for a little bit and then, and I'm not a doctor, don't have a PhD, you go back to normal. They hit early in the morning. They hit me at about 5-ish in the morning. My wife caught both of them. Fire truck came to the house for the first time. Firemen talked to me. The hose draggers, they do what they do. It's like, hey, you probably need to go to the hospital, get checked out. I did that. They kept me in there for 3 days, got treated, got out, and really didn't change my routine. Whereas the stress, the eating, and yes, sometimes smoking, but I didn't change. The second one hit, I believe, a month later. That one should have been the knockout punch. The wife took a picture of me that she keeps just to remind me, hey, you were like this. And really, I looked at my face and it was lopsided. Again, the fireman came, and this firefighter, during the COVID time, the fire department came to your house, they were dressed in outbreak suits. So this firefighter, I don't know who he was, but he said basically, hey, we're really kind of tired of playing with you and you not taking this seriously. He read me the riot act, the fireman. I said, wait a minute, I'm the police. You can't talk to me like that. But I said, okay, the ambulance is here. I will get in the ambulance if it will make you happy. And I did. And I got to the hospital and the doctor, he said, you know what? This is a little bit more serious. You're going to St. Louis. There's a stroke center in St. Louis. I stayed there for a week. And again, during COVID in the hospital, there really were not visitors. So I had to go through it by myself. You got phone calls, but it's not the same as getting visits. Went through a lot of tests. I saw my heart. They put me on medication. My heart rate, they pumped it up to about 240 beats a minute. And I didn't feel a thing. It scared the hell out of me. I looked at the doctors and said, hey, is this normal? They said, yeah, we got it. We're in control of everything. Just relax. I'm looking at the monitor, 240, 260 beats a minute does not look normal if I'm not running or I'm just laying here. they took care of me in St. Louis at that the Fenton Stroke Clinic. But the plan was, the one doctor, he said, hey, we might have to go in your brain to clear the blockage. That scared me. He said, let us work some things out and figure out what we can do. Doctor came back, I believe, the next day, and he said, okay, I got a plan. He said, because you're too young, I know you love what you do, your career. He said, we can fix it, but you're going to have to be on medications for the rest of your life. You're on blood thinners. They gave me a regimen of medications I have to take. It's only 4 pills, and I have to take them daily. It's a part of my life now. And that's, I guess, where the change really started. The first stroke, that was the second one. The first one, I was so messed up that I was sick. I knew I was sick. My wife saw it, and I'm still trying to go to work. I mean, my face is like, I was in bad shape. I don't know how I got my contacts in, put my gun belt on, and I finally got somewhat together. Okay, get myself to work. I'm going. I was dedicated. And, you know, that never stop mentality that you get from SWAT, that nothing's going to get in your way. Nothing's going to stand in your way. If it is, I'm going to knock it over. I'm going to get through it. I was sick. So I went to get ready for work. I said, hey, where's my car keys? Because we had take-home cars. Or I had a take-home car. And she said, I hit them. She said, you're not going in? And I'm going to make sure you're not going in. And it hurt. She broke my heart by hiding my car keys to keep me safe. And that's how I looked at it. And that's how I realized something else was wrong. Something else was wrong with me. So I got through those 2 strokes. I also talked to a counselor to figure out my issues. I figured out those issues and realized, okay, there's some changes that have to go on. Maybe I need to get away. So, of course, I applied for ILEETA in 19. 20 was canceled because I believe of COVID. So the first year I attended was 21. I went to ILEETA, and like I said, I've talked to my counselor. I believe I may have still been talking to my counselor, or it was just ending. And I went, and I thought ILEETA, when I first went, was going to be like, because 2018, I went to the Orlando SWAT Roundup. So I thought it was going to be like the SWAT Roundup, you know, guns and rappelling out of helicopters. And ILEETA wasn't like that. It was totally different. And it was a wake-up call. It's like, wow. I had to change my whole OODA loop around to figure out, okay, what am I doing here at this conference? And it's not guns, and it's not really none of that. It's a totally different show at ILEETA. So there was I'm walking through the hall. I'm still kind of discombobulated with figuring out this conference, and drop all my papers in the hallway. And this woman, she helps, picks up my papers, and she has that thick Russian accent, you know, Margaret Yanis with hybrid. She said, you need to come to my class. And I was like, why? You know, it's not SWAT, not guns. You know, why do I need? You will like it. You need to come to my class. That's what she said. My intention, and she's probably watching, and then tell us I intended to like blow that class off. It didn't interest me. The mental health aspect of this job didn't interest me. I went to her class, and it was probably one of the best classes that I've gone to. Just in that I heard her say things that I was feeling but couldn't express. And that's where my journey began on mental health, figuring out, okay, what's going on? Because I asked her, what happens after 10 years with this job? I've asked also Nicole Florisi, same question. What happens after 10 years with this job? something happens, I think mentally, but something happens physically. Again, I don't have a PhD. I don't have the answer to that question. I'm going to find out what it is, but I know all my changes happened after my 10-year mark. It wasn't fun anymore. I've heard other officers say this. The fun kind of weared off. But that's where I started using ILEETA more for my outlet with mental health and just health in general. It's a great conference. It's my go-to. They already got me set up at the sheriff's department for next year. And with that, because it's helped me so much, my goal is to get more people going to the conference. Because I tell people the same thing. Have you heard about ILEETA? And usually the answer is, no, I haven't heard about it. I said, well, let me tell you about ILEETA. So I explained it to them, the cop college theory. And they're like, wow, how do we sign up? Right now, I got at least 3 or 4 that said they're going to, 2 for sure that are going to attend. And they're right there in the St. Louis area. I said, it's perfect for you guys in the St. Louis area because you don't have to stay at the hotel. You can travel back and forth. You can stay at the hotel for the events. But going to that conference, it's going to help you so much. It's going to help you more than you know in the progression of your career and knowing where you need to go, knowing what's wrong with you, answer those questions that you have. Yes, it's been a great conference. I plan on attending as many years as I can. Yes.
Wow. That was a lot.
I didn't mean to talk that long.
Well, no, you gave us a lot to unpack, which I absolutely love. Like I've been kind of jotting some notes along as you were talking, and some of these things, like, you know, all the way back to, you know, when you first started, you know, when you first transitioned over, and that conversation about going to ILEETA. When I first heard that, there was a part of me in the back of my mind that was like, hey, you just buttering me up. You're saying what I want to hear, right? But now, after talking to you for as many times as I have, I genuinely believe, like, that in your soul, your heart, it means that much to you to come to these conferences. I've watched you engage with so many different members and all walks of the profession. That's really kind of one of the cool things about this event. But just kind of hanging out with you and the people you connect with, it's, you know, the SWAT types over here, but then you'll be over there talking to Marie D'Amico about new instructor development or the law and that kind of stuff. It's like so many different things. And so, yeah, I mean, there was a lot in there, a lot to unpack, but I'm excited to unpack it.
I met Marie D'Amico the last conference earlier this year. Great woman. She said, Rob, I'm going to introduce you to people. She is just a bundle of joy. She is just out. She's a great lady, but she is smart about the criminal and the judicial side of this profession. Another great lady I met was Luann Hamlin, very serious about her craft. She is, I mean, I asked her, I like law enforcement history too, so I asked her about Las Vegas. I said, how do we as a department, because I'm on the SWAT team, I'm on my sheriff's department SWAT team now also. I said, how do we address threats from an elevated position when we don't train for it? Mentioning the situation in Las Vegas, I think about 8 years ago. And she put me in contact with some people. She said, I got some people you can talk to. It's one of the biggest law enforcement networking events that I've seen. Like I said, I've been to TAC Ops in Nashville. I've been to Orlando, and
all great conferences.
ILEETA beats both of those almost. Just with the networking aspect.
It's fascinating, the diversity of ILEETA. Like you mentioned, 2 phenomenal conferences. I mean, both of those events are great.
They're great.
But one of the things I think we hear quite often about ILEETA is that diversity that you're talking about, because you'll be rolling around on the mat with some phenomenal DT instructors. And then you'll get out on the range with a guy like Todd, who, I mean, clearly, like, these are experts in their craft, but they're also beyond that, the experts in teaching that craft.
Yes.
And then you'll go into that room with Margaret or Nicole, or, you know, pick any of our other, you know, mental health types, instructor development folks that really know adult learning, and you put all that together in one space, and it's this interesting array of, like, this, it's very tangential conversations, right? And just kind of going off of what you said, you'll be talking down in the, like, the Milo event. Nice shirt, by the way, Todd. You'll be down in the Milo event on Tuesday night, and literally, like, moving from table to table, the conversation kind of evolves as you go. Like, over here, we're talking about simulators and their role and what VR could possibly be doing, and then at the very next table, you're like, talking about, you know, the latest technology and flashlights and what's working, and it's just fascinating stuff.
And it's sad because there's not enough time. Really, ILEETA should be 2 weeks, but you have to make that week count.
Man, I don't have enough energy for that.
It fills my battery, but I'll be honest with you, it's just weird, and many of you can probably identify with this, right? We always talk about how ILEETA recharges the battery.
It does.
But most of us are true introverts, in that being around too many people for too long also drains our batteries. Yeah. And so by the end of ILEETA, I have this weird emotional juxtaposition thing happening where my battery's as full as it can be, but I just want to go home and sleep. I've got nothing left.
No, it's you meet so many people there. The attendees who come from Canada really impress me because most of them pay out of their pocket. That shows what that conference is doing. People will pay out of their own pocket to attend this conference every year. And they take it back to Canada. There's more people I want to meet. Carrie Avery. You have the Grand Hall in your background, and I think I told you some of the best conversations happen in that Grand Hall after all the classes are over. I've seen people, the Grand Hall, they'll shut down 1, 2 in the morning. There's people still down there talking about the craft, how to do it better, and we got classes the next day. But you want to learn so much in the time you have because it is short. It goes by, that week goes by fast. One thing I kick myself in the butt for not doing, I tell everybody, go to Emerson Hour. The first 2 years, I did not go to Emerson Hour. And I do not know why I did that. I went last year. I saw Von's presentation with 4 signs. I want to meet Von next year at the conference. I'm going to meet him. It's not want.
I was going to say, let me pause you there, because I think you already know the answer to this question. But one of the cool things about ILEETA, can I just walk up to pick a person?
Yeah.
And just say, hey, I want to know more about what you're doing? How does that work from your own experience?
It's how it worked with me. And I go back to Carrie. I usually go alone, and there's a reason I usually go alone to ILEETA. There was a year that I went with two other members from my former department. I could tell early on they weren't feeling the conference. And I said, okay, that's a problem. If you're not feeling it, you're not going to get nothing from it. Friday morning, we had breakfast, and they said, hey, by the way, we're ready to go home. I'm outnumbered 2-1. What can I do? I can't stay. They got the car because we carpooled together. That kind of sucked a little bit that I had to leave. I want to get every day of that conference in because there's so much to learn. So with going back to your question about interactions, it's easy. It was easier than I thought. Carrie Avery, she said she was sitting with her husband at the table in Grand Hall, and she said, hey, come here, have a seat, and we're going to talk. And that's what we did. We just talked. It's so simple, but it's almost looking at like, when I say superstars, maybe you're like, wow, you're in awe. I've seen this person on a computer talk about their craft and the love they have for it. But then you see them in person and you're like, wow, that's them. And sometimes they're a little shorter in person, but it's
I resemble that remark.
yeah, it's a little shorter in person. It's like, wow, is that really them? Is that really Lou Ann Hamlin? I said, wow, yeah. Don't get me wrong, guys. I still like the shooting. I still like the tactical aspect of this profession. But as I get older, you go through change. And that's where I'm at now. I still love, as long as my body can do it, I'm still going to stay on my team. But I know there's the other side of it. And that's that mental health capacity of it. And that's the biggest thing that kind of drives me now, especially at ILEETA. I make sure Nicole's classes with Force Science, I make sure I go to hers, and Margaret with hybrid. I make sure I go to those classes. I don't miss them.
I've got a question for you, and it has to do with the academy, but it also has to do with kind of with the conference, but also has to do with what led us there. So you mentioned that the first time you went with a couple of guys from your former agency, and they just weren't feeling it.
Yeah.
So why was that? If you were to analyze what we could do to have made their experience better, or was it just a commitment to being an instructor of the craft, or what was the reason for there? Because that kind of interests me.
Honestly, I think the way the conference is set up is perfect. Of course, you guys send out the schedule before the conference, so you can set up your classes. And I usually go through a routine. If somebody's coming, like the guys I have coming this year, I'm going to tell them, hey, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to navigate the conference. The two guys that I went with, and I'm going to be totally honest, I don't know if they were humble enough to understand. You got to have humility going to that conference. I don't know if they were humble enough to understand, okay, this is a learning aspect. It's not here for you to, well, they're doing it the wrong way. No, you're listening to somebody getting in front of a class full of people and explaining what's worked for them. Some people get that, some people don't. But you have to have people who come with open minds. I'm selective in who I approach about coming to ILEETA now, because I know some people got an ego or a chip on their shoulder. That's another thing we got to get rid of in this profession. They have to be humble enough when they walk through those doors at Union Station to know, okay, this is a learning environment. That's why it's Cobb College. It's a learning environment. You have to be humble to learn. You have to be open to learn. I think the guys that I went with, and it's no offense to them, I just don't think they were open to learn, because maybe they thought they knew so much that they didn't need it. And so be it. That's fine. But, I want people to come to that conference who's going to take something from it and give it back to their agencies. That's the ultimate goal of ILEETA. Learn and take it back and spread what you've learned to other officers.
Yeah. Yes. And I like what you said also about, I'm in that hard skill tactical arena. And I mean, I love shooting. I have combative firearms training. I travel around and teach cops how to shoot, cops how to teach, which is more important to me. I take part in whenever I'm home. I shoot competitively. I shoot matches all the time. And yet when I go to ILEETA, one of the things I like about it is that it's not all guns all the time, right? It challenges me outside of my sphere, outside of my comfort zone. And I think you're right. In order for you to accept that challenge outside of your sphere, outside of your comfort zone, you have to be humble. You have to have some humility, because you're not going to, if you're a good shooter, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be super talented on lesson plan development, or in if you could be fantastic on the mats, but you struggle with, creating PowerPoints that kill our students, right? The death by PowerPoint thing. And so you have to be humble enough to look to improve. So I like how you frame that.
I tell people when they go there, the ones I'm talking to now, and it's almost, you have to, first of all, you have to tell them, hey, this is what you have to do, because it's a routine that worked for me. Minus my first year. My first year going, again, I was thinking ILEETA was tactical stuff, and it really wasn't. I went to ILEETA my first year, and I wore tactical boots during the whole conference. Well, I said, I am never doing that again. I had quarter size. So I learned, and I tell them, the ones coming, hey, invest in a good pair of tennis shoes. You're going to walk. An average ILEETA day starts at about 8 in the morning, 8, 9 in the morning. And if you really want to get the full effect of it, say your day probably won't end until about 10 or 11. It's a long day, and you're going to be on your feet, and you're going to be walking. And I had a tracker, and I think when one day I took like 14, 15,000 steps.
Yeah.
Said the Grand Hall, it's a big hotel. You're going from one end to the other. I also tell people, when they send those courses out, make 2 copies. Also, another thing I tell them to do, get the guidebook. The guidebook is a godsend to get you through that conference and navigate that hotel to get to your classes. But back to the classes, I say go through that list, get a highlighter, make it an A list and a B list. Say some of those classes you're going to get, some of those classes you're not going to be able to get into. Make a list, plan ahead. Do the instructor, when you get there, you're going to check in. I always tell people, check in early so you can avoid the rush.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to give you a book. When you get that book, read up those instructor bios. Said, take a night, read up the instructor bios. The Grand Hall will be there, but just read and see what's going on with the conference. Get your mind set for what you're going to be doing Monday morning, which is learning.
Almost sounds like you'd be a good candidate to write a article on how to navigate the conference for first time.
It is a science. I thought about that. Maybe, I know you do something in Emerson Hour for new attendees, but maybe something along the lines of, hey, if you're a new attendee, it's not mandatory, but meet in this room and we're going to tell you, hey, this is what you're in for.
So we do.
We got that now.
Jason Nubs has a newcomer's orientation, and I'll tell you, it is hands down. I think it's the place that first timers need to go. But I was just talking it over with Brian Willis and some others that I think reasonably you and everybody on this call. Actually, I think everybody else on this call is at every single one of those, because it's the place to be for newcomers, and it's the ideal time to hear all of those best practices and what you just offered there. I think every newcomer needs to hear. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think those of us that have been going to ILEETA for years and years, I think it's a great place for us to be, because your ILEETA experience is different than mine, right?
It is.
And so I can hear what your experience is, and maybe I'm like, wow, I haven't had that experience. I want more of that. Right. Because I've done mine, but I want to expand more. And it's also a great place it's like a lot of us that have been going for a while, we know each other, we see each other at ILEETA. Right. But what about those new people? Who are these new people? What do they have? And where are you from? And what do you do? And what's your story? And I think that adds to the ILEETA experience. So I think that intro to ILEETA session on Sunday night is phenomenal for our new people. Yes. But I think that it's absolutely equally valuable for those of us who've been doing it a while.
Because when I went my first year, I did not know. I knew I was getting up and I was going to classes. I didn't know what I was doing in tactical boots running around the hotel. I didn't know what I was doing. I think when did the guidebook start? About 22, 21, 22?
No,
When that guidebook.
Before COVID. I don't know if Harvey.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID.
I don't know if Harvey was able to make it tonight, but if somebody does know, go ahead and drop that into one of the chats for us. I think it was 2 years before COVID.
Yeah. No, but I downloaded that guidebook and it got me through that hotel. That hotel is huge.
It is from the guidebook. I mean, so Caliber makes that just a tremendous opportunity for us. Just so everybody knows, the guidebook is sponsored by Caliber Press, and it is like hands down one of the biggest benefits of the conference, because everything from, as Rob was just alluding to, you've got the map and like, how do I get from this room I'm in to that room that I need to be in? The fastest way is through the guidebook, but the instructor bios, the class evaluations, everything like local transportation, where to eat. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in that guidebook. And I was just talking with Ray and Roger about how we can improve that guidebook for 25, because it's been a tremendous tool, but there are some features of it that we just don't fully use yet. So some great stuff there. The over to you, Todd. I lost my thought. Or Brian, I lost my thought. I'll get it back. Oh, I promise.
No, I'll touch in on something. Of course, I talked about my struggles with mental health, which again, you have to be humble and open to talk about that. I think in this profession, we don't. I know when I first started, you didn't talk about it if you had a problem, and if you did, you better handle it on your own. It's not the way to handle it. The best thing I learned is talking to other people. ILEETA is a reboot. When I started my other agency, of course, that's the one thing I asked for. I want to go to ILEETA. So 23, I attended from the new agency. And again, I'm going to mention again, Margaret with Hybrid. She said, "You look different." I said, "What do you mean I look different?" She said, "You look different. You look happy." She said, "You never looked happy before." So again, it's that other people seeing what you went through. And Nicole said the same thing. "You look happy. You look different." My wife, she said the same thing. "You're different." She knows I come back from ILEETA happy because I've learned so much. And I try to spread that happiness. The expo show is the greatest thing ever. And I don't know why more people don't come to it, again, from agencies in the area.
Go on. Why is that? So you mentioned two things in there. First of all, for everybody's awareness, you could be from a department an hour away, and if you just want to drive in on that day, bring your badge and creds with you, and you're walking through the door, and you come check out the expo, learn about ILEETA, and just dip your toe in the water. But what about the expo, Rob, makes that worth going to for trainers? It's a training event. What is it?
Wow. You meet so many vendors who are their options that may not be available to where your departments are. Where when you come to this conference, I believe there's like 200 vendors. You can find something that could benefit your department.
And we literally, it was awesome last year. Mary Grace and Ray Merlin were like trying to shuffle booths around to capitalize on that space. Yeah, we capped out at 120, and they still snuck 4 more booths in because of that many people, vendors, convinced that trainers are the audience they need to be in front of.
Yeah. So we got vendors. Case in point, again, my sheriff's office. We're using 40 caliber Glocks. We're still using Glock 22s. I went to ILEETA and I always go to the Glock tent. You got to go to the Glock table to see what new things they have. And I'm waiting for them to show that Glock rifle, but they said it's not a thing. We'll see about that. But I went to Glock and they had their newest pistol, which was the 45. And they were putting the red dot on at the factory, at Glock factory. So when you got the pistol, you didn't have to worry about nothing. When you got it, it was good to go. our department was talking about going to 9mm and red dots. I got on the phone with my lieutenant and said, hey, Glock has this new pistol down here, and it already has the red dot on it ready to go when we buy it. Later that year, our whole department switched over to the Glock 45 with the red dot optic. Awesome. And all that is from the information I received from ILEETA. Mm-hmm. If I didn't go to ILEETA and didn't go to the Glock tent, will we have gotten that information? I don't know. But I know ILEETA helped to get the information to the people who need it. And this year, my goal is to get my admin and my chief to come down. My chief is a busy lady. She's building a new jail for our department. But I really would love for her to come down. If she's listening, I don't know if she is. But hopefully she can come down and see the expo, because there's a lot there that you can build on for a department, for your agency.
Would love to see them there. Hey, check out that question right there from Dwayne.
I'm gonna go real quick into how this came about. Joe called me, and I was talking to him about new members coming to the conference, and he said, "Hey, Rob, I want to tell you something." He said, "There's been thousands of attendees that come to ILEETA, and of that, there's only about 52 of you who have came faithfully." And he said, "You're one of those 52
that have their agency paid. Many of us come every year faithfully as instructors and have that tuition comped, and we see them year after year after year. But there's only a small handful who each year tuition is paid and they continue to come. And Rob, you've been faithfully one of those. And I think there's many others. There's about 50 plus, but you absolutely are one."
And that goes to the conference and the departments that want their people to come there to learn something. So I'm happy. Joe said, "Hey, I'm one of the 50 some odd people who've been coming for years." He said, "So when are you going to teach?" And my flight just went down a little bit. So I didn't expect that question, Joe. He said, "It's time to pass the knowledge that you know on to other people." Said, "You have a lot of knowledge." Because me, I was just fine attending, going to classes, learn the information. He said, "Yeah, that's good, but sometimes you got to pass that on to other people, spread that knowledge." And I said, but I've decided that, yes, I'm going to teach this year. Be scared as hell. But then I think about it, as law enforcement, you're on the stage every day. You're in front of people every day. You're performing every day. Why not pass it on to some colleagues, the strives you've gone through to get to where you are, and maybe it'll help them out.
Yeah. And Joe's pretty good at pushing people outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone about that earlier today. So if I ever push you too far, just, hey, Joe, back off just a little bit. But no, I genuinely, I see it in you, our conversations. I feel it from your soul, your presence when you communicate with people. There's something about it. You connect well. And I think that that's one of those things that is important. We talk often about the ILEETA experience being different for everyone. And this reminds me what I wanted to mention to the group earlier was, Rob, you mentioned Grand Hall at 2:00 in the morning. There are still plenty of networking happening, shutting things down. There are, world according to Willis, not Brian, but I think he'd agree with me on at least one of these 3 points. There are 3 schools of thought in how to handle ILEETA after hours. Number one is, like many do, you mentioned it, you could network until early hours and then still be back in class the next day ready to soak it in. And I got all the respect in the world for those who can do that. Joe Willis is not one of them. But I've stayed up actually, with a couple of you on this screen till at least past my bedtime, and trying my hardest to enjoy that and embrace it. There's another group that really enjoys St. Louis has some of the best local restaurants. I mean, and just finding your tribe, those 2 or 3 people you don't see but once a year, you take that small group out to the Shaved Duck, which is a really good restaurant out there, and just hang out with just 3 or 4 people and truly embrace that opportunity to connect and share ideas in that small group. And then there's another group who at the event ends at last thing of the day is, just a little after 1800, everything's closed down. They've eaten for the evening. They are back in their room, writing notes, doing that metacognitive thing, like trying to dig up all that stuff. And we know a couple of them and who they are. And again, I think those are the 3 groups. There's room for all 3 at ILEETA. Yeah. That's one of the coolest parts about this experience. And you'll find your tribe if you fit into any of those 3.
Absolutely. Or you'll fit into all 3 somehow. I mean,
exactly. There are those nights where you find yourself
different nights.
I am way up past my bedtime right now, but I am not leaving this conversation.
Yeah.
I'll write
when you build that connection, it's just so, it's like you almost have to pull yourself away to say, hey, I got to go to sleep. I got to go to bed. You almost have to decompress for the next day. That's something I do after the conference. When it's over, of course, I mentioned the expo. I always get stuff back to take back to the people I work with. They know when I go to the expo and they say, hey, Rob, what'd you get for us? There's one sergeant, my SWAT team leader. There's my SWAT team leader. He says, Rob, don't mess this up. All I want is stickers. Get me stickers. I said, so you want stickers? I said, yes. He said, you don't want the Glock?
I travel well with stickers.
He said, I want stickers. I said, okay, I can do that for you, Sergeant. I can get you stickers. But something else I also do is you have to decompress. From that week of learning, you have to decompress. So I decompress for that week, and usually the week after, I'm shooting out an email to my sheriff and my command staff about everything I learned.
I love it.
So that they know, hey, okay, this is a good thing. This is a good reason. This is why we're sending you.
So, hey, let me ask you. Actually, Brian, you're probably going to do something here in just a second. We're coming down to the end, and I have thought of my last question.
So we got about 10 minutes left, and I asked Rob if he wanted to stay on a little bit longer, if because I thought this was going to be going a good night conversation. So Joe and Todd, I don't know if you're up for staying 10 minutes longer. We'll play by ear, but ILEETA is a great organization. You brought up some wonderful ideas, some wonderful tips and pointers for everybody that maybe hasn't gone to their first conference, or those people that have gone to 20 conferences. Joe talked about the 3 categories, and I think the more that you go to ILEETA, the many more years that you go there, the more relationships and friendships that you build.
Yes.
And my bedtime is usually 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I'm one of those late night owls at ILEETA because I have to go make sure that I hang out with all these friends that I've gathered over the years. And it's many. And I try not to leave people out, but I know I do. And it's tough. You want to make sure that you spend some time with some of those people that you only see once a year. And that's sometimes hard to do. And it is those late nights and getting up the early morning, but the dedicated trainers, and you mentioned a couple people had some egos. I've been going there since 2008-ish, 9-ish, and very few people that I've seen have egos. They've been there occasionally, and most of the time they don't come back. And
exactly.
It's the people that like-minded folks that want to learn, that keep coming back, and it's a wonderful organization to build some friendships. And you talked about keeping people in check, your mental aspect. A lot of us have had some health issues, some mental issues, and I know Todd, I was going through some things here, some health issues, and Todd kept calling me every single day to make sure I was staying up on those things. And I think that's another great benefit of ILEETA is the friendships and the people that really truly care for us personally as a not just an instructor or a contact or somebody to call and talk to once a year. And I think those out there listening can probably say the same thing. You know, we've done a lot for each other outside of ILEETA to make sure that we are mentally sound and keeping our stuff together and making those calls. And if there's anybody out there that needs to talk, we've had a lot of, it just seems like every day or every other day, a law enforcement suicide that I've read about. You can call me. I think you can call anybody on this call. And if you need to talk, pick up the phone, send an email, send a text. We're here to listen. And we want to make sure that you and your families out there stay healthy and get through things. So, you know, we talk about the mental health, and ILEETA is doing leaps and bounds of having some resources and some classes and some top-notch instructors out there talking to people. But I've talked long enough, and I wanted to give that little spiel, and I also wanted to give a couple of plugs out there for, you know, we got a deadline coming up for our ILEETA journal, September 10th. Carrie, Kim, Dan, and myself are the ILEETA editors, and we always get some great articles, and we would love to see some new folks, new instructors writing for the journal. Send us an email, zap us questions. If you have questions about how to write for the journal, we'll get you published, and it looks good on your resume. It looks good with your department that, hey, you're published in an international publication. Also, the deadline for the 2025, it's hard to say, 2025 ILEETA conference instructor proposals is October 31st, which is, we'll be here quicker than you realize it. So if you haven't got your proposal put in yet, get that put in. We always enjoy seeing new instructors and learning from new people. That keeps us on our game, because sometimes we get a little stagnant in our profession, and hearing some younger folks, newer instructors and their ideas put some light bulbs in our head and helps us train a little bit better. So get those instructor proposals in, and we look forward to reconnecting here in, what did I have up here? 208 days left until we all reunite and have our family reunion for a whole week. So looking forward to that. But I wanted to dive into something. You were really vulnerable tonight, and we really appreciate the vulnerability that you've shared with us. Kind of share a little bit how you've managed to get through some of those struggles, you know, the health struggles, the strokes. I know we have a lot of instructors that have health issues, and it's good to know that there's officers out there that continue serving our communities that have had some health issues, and we've bounced back and we've been resilient, and we're still plugging away.
How did I get through my health struggles? After my hospital visits, my now daily medication I have to take, it's pushing yourself, resilience. I usually run, and not really run, let's be real. I'm 48 years old. It's more of a trot or a jog, but I do about 3.5 mile jog through my neighborhood, and it brings clarity. The exercise and getting the sun on you, it feels so good to just get out there and have to worry about nothing but running, or trotting. I put on a little motivational music, and I just get out there and I get in my own space. Something me and my wife do. My wife's a teacher like my mother was. Decompress. I tell her when she gets home, don't talk. I understand. Don't talk to me for about an hour. Just let it come down. And she does the same thing with me. When I get off work, hey, I know, leave Robb alone for maybe about an hour, just so that you can come down from the level that you're at. And this is all stuff I learned at ILEETA. Rest. Rest is a really big thing that I don't know if younger cops realize it. Yeah, that working a 12-hour shift, sleeping for a few hours, and then going to court and thinking it's cool. It's not. It wears you down. It wins. It's the mental health and health in general is that it's that bullet that your armor can't stop. It's going to get through. It is going to get through. There's no body armor that can stop that. So it's a two-folded question almost. You have to work mentally to make sure you're sane, especially when you leave this job. But you also have to make sure that you keep yourself ready so that when you do leave and you do retire, you don't have a heart attack. Well, I think the average is every 5 years after you retire, cops are having heart attacks because they don't take care of themselves. They don't eat. Believe me, I love to eat. Wings, pizza, Chinese food. I love it. When I go to a buffet, I take it as a personal challenge. But I don't do that anymore. As I get older, I get just enough. I learned moderation. Can't have it all, but for the little bit you have, you can get. Hey, do the best with it.
This kind of flows into my final question for you.
Okay.
So you survived two different strokes.
Yeah.
And that was roughly 4 years ago. And you've made some lifestyle changes since then that allowed you to experience something in July of this year for the first time. What was that?
July of
What happened in July 2024? I saw it on your bio. You became not a parent.
A granddad. I became a grandfather. Yes.
Yeah. Congratulations, man. Congratulations on that. And that is something that without those lifestyle changes and taking your health seriously, you might not have been able to experience. So,
no,
man, that's awesome. Congratulations. This is
awesome. Again, it all goes back to stuff. I wouldn't have known this stuff if I didn't go to the conference. I know I'm giving the proper recognition that the conference deserves because I got so much from it. You have to go there with an open mind and you got to know you're there to learn. But if you go there with that, hey, you'll take a lot from it. And I take that knowledge and I give it to other people that I work with. I tell people, hey, if you need to talk to somebody, talk. I didn't for years. I kept it in. You keep it bottled in. Nicole, I mentioned her too. Like I said, these are the women of mental health that I seek out when I go to that conference. She said it's like a waste can. You keep throwing paper in it. Eventually, it's going to overflow. That's us with this job. It's going to overflow. Don't let your cup overflow. Don't let your waste basket overflow. Know when to empty it. Because it overflows.
There you go. So, Nicole just jumped in here, brother, and kind of threw that out to you. You're making some great points. And without a doubt, she is, top notch. You mentioned Margaret.
She is.
There's many others that come in and present, but she is definitely top notch. And so, I wanted to make sure you saw her. Kudos to you. You're hitting all the high points.
Like I said, I know why Vaughn has her around. I saw them do a class one day, and it was the coolest thing ever because it's the first thing I've seen at ILEETA where they tag teamed a class. Nicole started, and it's like, okay, and then Vaughn took over, and then Nicole came back, and it was the coolest thing I saw because it gave you two different aspects. It kept you interested in that class. I love that. I wish it'd be done more, and maybe I haven't been going to those classes, but that was the first time I saw it, and I loved it.
Yep. Because maybe that's
coolest
how
thing
it
I've
works in
seen.
real life, right? Like all of this stuff is tied together. And when we only go with listening to with one mind to one perspective all the time, sure, we're going to hear exactly what we came to hear, but then all of a sudden, well, what's this other thing this other person's talking about? And yeah, absolutely. Hey, question for you with I had somebody come up to me in Indianapolis the other day, and he's trying to convince his chief to send him. And he said, what's your advice on, how do I convince my chief to send me to this conference, me and my partner? And I said, well, first of all, Brian's got a great video on the site. So by all means, go look at that. I highly recommend. That's a tremendous place to start. World According to Joe Willis. Here's everything I think. But your opinion. I need to convince my chief to send me to ILEETA. What do I tell him? Give me a soundbite.
I would tell your chief, if you want me to be the best that I can be for this department and this community, this conference is the place to start. I can take the knowledge that I learned from there, bring it back here, and be a better asset to serving this department and community. I would reach out to me. I'll talk to a chief and tell him, hey, you need to send your guys to ILEETA. That's what happened with the SWAT roundup. There's a SWAT operator. He was unfortunately involved in the Pulse nightclub incident, but he also helps me with mental health too. And he said, hey, if you want to go these things, I will tell you how to do it. I will talk to your chief. I will talk to whoever I need to get you to come to this conference because I know it's going to help. It's going to help your department if you send your people to come here and learn, in my opinion, from the best. I've just learned, though, if you're going to a firearms course, you better sign up early because they tend to get snatched up pretty quick. So
they do. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's never about the person you send. I mean, by all means, there's nobody who goes to ILEETA. I mean, you mentioned maybe a couple, but very few go to ILEETA and they don't get something personal out of it. But the vast majority, when they leave, it's like an empty, a faucet that's been opened wide and the pipes been connected to it, and information can just flow. And then there's still plenty of opportunity to reach back and say, hey, I met this person and they were talking about this thing and I didn't really pay attention to it back then, but now there's, this person in my department working on a policy about that thing. Can I connect you? Just so many networking opportunities. So spot on, man. Thank you for sharing that.
You talk about networking. Maria D'Amico, she told me, so I would always take to ILEETA. I take like 200 business cards. I talked to our administrative assistant at the sheriff's office, say, hey, I need some business cards and went to the conference. Maria told me, hey, instead of doing that, take a picture on your cell phone of your business card and then just give it to people. This is the first time I heard of that. So you got the person's number and they got the business card. It's like, okay, why didn't I think of that before? But that's passing that knowledge from our years of going to ILEETA, passing on to other people. And that's what I would do. Hey, don't bring any business cards. Just keep a picture on your cell phone. Give it that person. You got that person's number. They got your information. Passing the knowledge on to the younger generation. And I think ILEETA would be great for younger officers to attend. But with shortages of departments, it's tough. But if you send one, sometimes one is enough.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, and I mean, you and I were talking about this in a separate conversation. I can go and on, Monday, I've got 3 different classes I want to hit and a networking opportunity I need to go to. There's my 4 things that I did. I'll go to Emerson Hour that night. Next day, I'll spend a good portion of my time at the expo, but I'll make sure to go get the writer's workshop that Carrie and Brian and the rest of the editors do. Then that night I go to the Milo event and network and, play some cornhole, now sponsored by Command Presence, which this was the first year they did that. But I guarantee, in my mind, I say I guarantee, I feel like it's going to be an ongoing thing. It was definitely worth doing. But then, you come back in on Wednesday and you're completely recharged. that's your taser instructor day or your baton instructor day. You went there to get an instructor course and you got it box checked. Then you go out to the range the following day. I mean, there's like something for everyone. And if your department is looking for certifications, there's plenty of certifications. Your department needs armor courses, plenty of armor courses.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
The best bang for your buck.
Best bang for your
buck. You got to quarterback that conference. Like from the start, when you land on the ground, you got to start quarterbacking it. Said it's,
Rob, you've given some powerful advice. You've shown some vulnerability that I think is much more needed in law enforcement.
It is.
You tonight was just a very valuable night of information that you shared. When I think of ILEETA, you walk away with a Rolodex of the world's most powerful, influential, smartest instructors that you have access to 365 days a year. You can pick up a phone and you can call somebody if you're struggling with an issue in use of force, with leadership, with mental health. You have that Rolodex available where you can call anybody almost any time of the day, night, morning, whenever. And there's somebody there willing to give you advice, or if they don't know, they will put you in touch with somebody. That's the power of ILEETA. And I just want to say thank you for coming on. This has been a great, I know we went a little bit over time, but this has been a great talk, a great conversation. I'm going to give you the next 30 to 60 seconds to say whatever it is on your mind to our ILEETA members out there.
First of all, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. I never thought I'd be here doing a live. To the members, try to come. Said the ones who are going to, I know a couple have already told me that they're not going to be able to make it this year. That's the sad thing about ILEETA. You got to forge those relationships and get those numbers because you're not guaranteed to see the people the next year. So get ready now. Start planning now. You should start quarterbacking now. Okay, stay at the hotel. Try to get at that hotel, the Union Station. The carryover hotel is okay, but Union Station is much better, and it will help your networking to succeed. Something I'm doing, I'm meeting people. I'm probably going to meet a lot more of you this year. I'm going to be a lot more open. Yes, I am introverted, but you have to be a little social butterfly at ILEETA. You got to get out there. You got to meet people, and you got to that's how you gain your knowledge. That's what I think the instructors, that's what they want all of us to do as attendees, gain knowledge so we can spread it. Spread it to the other ones who need it. I mean, at least that's where I'm at in my law enforcement journey. It's not about kicking in doors anymore. I love that. I'm thinking about what's on the other side of when you get out of this profession. Yep.
Good.
And again, of course, like and subscribe, like they say on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe.
Absolutely. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at ILEETA. Powerful night. Great information, great nuggets of wisdom. We really enjoyed talking to you, Rob. And we're glad that all you out there took time to listen to our conversation, and those that will be listening later. Thanks for taking time to listen to this. Make sure that you plug the ILEETA Lives with fellow instructors, ILEETA members, and get the word out there. And we're looking forward to seeing you in 208 days. 208 days.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks for everything. Todd, Joe, thank you for all your wonderful wisdom and questions.